What's good, my man? Can you hear me?
What up, snitches?
What's going on?
Can't complain. Can't complain at all.
Waiting for the budget gerbil to get in here.
Yeah, the most annoying guy in the world. I swear he's my little brother.
Yeah, I feel like you guys got that relationship.
Yeah, like he's I don't have a little brother, but if I could imagine having one, it would definitely be
him.
I told him the other day, I was like, you're like, I love you so much, but at the same time, I want to choke the fuck out of you. Like every day.
I feel like that's all my really good friends though. Like I want to fucking kill them, but I also love them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, he's a good dude. High energy.
Let's see where he's at. I figured his ass would have been the first one in here.
Yeah. He's probably been preparing all day. I just jotted down my notes just a minute ago.
Yeah, I mean, like for 5 minutes. I mean, like, it's honestly probably hard to talk for only like 5 minutes. Like, you guys are probably gonna have to like flash a siren or something and tell me to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no, I'm the opposite. I'm short and to the point. So I'll give a quick introduction of myself, and then kind of talk a little bit about budgeting and not spending too much and using discretionary income to save money.
What up? Can you hear us?
Sure.
Hey, can you guys see me?
Yeah, I see you.
Unfortunately.
I have no idea what it's going to look like for everybody else. I hope it looks like this, but they shouldn't be able to talk. On the last one I did, they can just comment. So you might want to pull up. I don't know.
They better not talk.
Yeah, well, that's what I was worried about the first one, because I was like, everyone's, they're going to have their dogs barking and kids crying and all kinds of shit. So
yeah,
we shouldn't be able to hear them, or they should be able to either chat. It looks like there's somebody else in there too.
Is there a way to like look at all of us at one time?
Swipe.
I see all you guys. I got a Dominic here as well. Dominic, if you hear me, chat and tell me what it looks like. Because there's one attendee that's in here already. Because they have access once we do. So there's one guy.
Marc, how did you see everybody?
Swipe to the right.
Oh, there we go.
Dude.
Big bro.
Technology.
Little bro.
All right.
So this is recording, right, for everybody to see after?
Yeah, it's recording. I don't know if it shows in your guys' top left. It says in mine in the top left. It says recording.
Awesome.
Brendan, get it together. We haven't even started yet, and you're fucking up. We curse on here?
I'm going to bring the juice.
Good, because I have none.
I was about to take a nap before this. I was getting tired.
Bruh, I have laundry sitting on my bed right now. I have so much I need to do tonight.
That's the worst pile. Just the laundry on the bed. Like, you put it there so you're like, I can't even go to sleep on purpose, because I know that if I don't put it on the bed, then I'm not going to do it.
That's why I do it. I know I have to go to sleep eventually, but I'll knock that out before I do.
Yeah. What's that plaque on the wall?
I was about to tell you. You see the greatness on the wall back behind me?
I can't see what it is.
I can't see it.
It's a degree from Penn State.
Oh, is it?
You guys killed a joke. Fuck.
There probably is some greatness on that wall, though.
Yeah, no, my walls are pretty bare, to be honest. Minimalist.
Dude, this year is so weird for football, the Big Ten and all that. Like they've only got they're only gonna have 6 games.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a UCF and a Tennessee fan, so it's like fucking been awful this year. So,
we haven't won a game.
To be fair, you guys only played like 1 or 2 games, but what was it? Indiana? Indiana looks good, man. That left-handed quarterback, it was flinging the ball.
Ohio State raped us.
Yeah, Ohio State's good.
Shut up.
Ohio State, I think, is the best team in the nation. I think they're better than Clemson, to be honest.
I think so too.
Dude, Alabama.
This might be their year.
You can never count Alabama out, man.
Well, yeah, you never can count them out with Saban.
Notre Dame, I think, is fake news. I think they're trash.
I agree.
For some reason, I just never believe they're that good. I
I
just
know.
can't do it. I don't know what it
Because
is.
they haven't been the last couple of years. My one of my good my Aaron's neighbor, my wife's old neighbor, she grew up next to him, is the tight end Michael Mayer. He was like number 1, I think, in his draft class. He's a big tight end there. So that's the only reason I care about Notre Dame this year. So I hope they do well, but we'll see. He's a baller so far. He's had a few touchdowns.
Who's Notre Dame playing this year? Are they using a
ACC, right?
ACC schedule?
Yeah, they just beat Clemson.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
Obviously,
I mean, they wouldn't have. Let's be honest. If Lawrence was in the game, it wouldn't have been close.
I agree.
Tough, man. They gave up 47 points somehow. You know, it's like I couldn't believe that they scored that much.
The defense was on the field the entire time.
That's true.
They're probably dead as hell.
They said that that back, I can't think of his name, the backup quarterback is like top 3 or 4 in the nation. Like if he was a starter.
It was. I mean, dude, the guy's like 6'5", like 260 as well.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's the next Jamarcus Russell.
Hopefully a longer career.
Dude, that guy, that running back that running back's been there for like 10 years. Travis Etienne or whatever his name is.
What's his deal?
That guy's like 30 years old.
Year, right?
I don't know why he didn't go out last year.
Yeah.
Like
I've heard that name forever.
Is he trying to like get a degree? Like who does that?
Yeah, I think he's already got the degree. I think this is his 5th year.
Oh my God.
I think he's just taking advantage. I don't know.
Bro, if he would have came out last year, he would have got paid.
Yeah, you get paid. I always my mom's a teacher and she's always like, they should go to school. I'm like, Mom, no. Why would you do that? Like you can go back to school very easily.
Well, it depends on when you're about to come out. Like honestly, if my child was in the top 20, I'd be like, you can do what you want, but you should probably like take the money. But otherwise,
same.
You know, like it's a toss up, man. Like you just never know what could happen. I'd much rather them have the degree in the background from like a major school. I mean, with the NFL, like it is like most people spend a few years there and then they're out.
Yeah.
But the paycheck at the end of the day is like large. I don't know. It's a toss up. Like even with Jamarcus, like we had that discussion and we knew that he would go top 10, and then we're just like, all right, like you're gonna be top 1 or top 2. We didn't know if it was gonna be him or Megatron. So we're just like, dude, just go for it. Yeah. And he got number 1, got paid out the asshole, and then hopefully no one's on right now.
There's only 2.
Paid, he got paid really well, and then we're just like, all right, well, you know, you can always get your degree afterwards. So and they end up getting it. So it's tough. I just want my kid to I would want my kid to have something after football.
Right.
I mean, even if you're the greatest athlete in the world, you know, you still have to fall back on something. Peyton Manning has all types of endorsements. You know, see him just chilling.
I need him to come coach Tennessee. That's what I need him to do.
Come to Penn State.
I've heard that he might go to the Browns. That was like a while back. I would love that. It's part of the
I think he wants to like just chill for like a couple of years, do some progressive commercials or whatever the hell it is. And
he actually really likes that stuff.
He's great for it. He's got like that, you know, that sense of humor. Like, it's kind of like a dry sense of humor, you know, but it works.
He's hilarious.
All right, we got a couple more minutes. If you guys are whoever's attending so far, Angie, Dominic, Jocelyn, Tyrone, we're gonna get started here in like 2 or 3 minutes probably. We might even hang around for a few more people to join. I'm sure most people will be fashionably late, maybe 7:30, 7:35. So just hang with us. We're just kind of shooting the shit here. So if you guys have anything going on, or you know, let us know in the chat where you're from, what's going on, why you're here. You know, and then we'll get started here in a little bit.
So you can't jump into the video?
So which
where's the chat?
What's that? Type in do participants, I think. No shit.
At the bottom you should say chat. Like if you scroll over part of the bottom part of the screen now.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, more. Yeah.
And then for everybody listening, same thing. And there's like, if you kind of scroll over the bottom, it's hidden unless your cursor's over it, but there should be a chat. And then I think there's like a Q&A, which is kind of the same deal. You should be able to type in there, but we're going to, go through like a couple different things here in a few minutes. And then, we'll kind of ask for questions and kind of dive into what specifically, anything you guys want to go over. So.
Yeah, people are jumping in.
I'll shut this door.
Love technology.
So these, Tyler, the highlighted questions, are those kind of the ones we're gonna touch on early on?
Well, we can go over that question list. That's fine. I was just sending to you guys because it brought up some interesting points and questions. But I guess really I'd like to kind of reward the people, I guess, that are here. And so once we get done with our topics, we can ask and just go down the chat one by one and ask maybe what questions they have. And then if for whatever reason, I doubt we'll run out of questions, but if we do, then we can maybe refer back to some of these ones.
Yeah, I'm with that.
Some other people had written down.
So Brendan, be brief.
I'll try. I have a hard time.
I'll be giving in the back. I'll be counting down. All right. I think I do have the ability to block you on here as the admin. So
hey, it's okay. I've been blocked before. I won't take offense to it.
I like how you put the budget dog on there. I gotta.
Oh, I didn't do that. I don't know how. Okay. I don't know. It also says Brendan. Thanks whoever.
I didn't do that. Maybe I did that. I don't know.
The D is supposed to be an N. Brennan.
That's weird because I don't know how that would have happened, and his name and my name aren't like that.
Yeah, I saw it across. It said Brendan. I didn't know I thought it was automated or something.
Dude, I don't know. I'm gonna click rename here in the top right. I can click these little 3 dots and put.
When you jumped in, I was like, I'm pretty sure his name isn't Brendan. I thought it was Brennan.
I don't think I did that.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna call him Brendan until he corrects me.
I wasn't listening like usual.
All right, I changed mine.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. How'd you do that?
So, hold on. All right, now we're done. I'm also Brendan now. So if you scroll over your video in the very top right, there's gonna be 3 little dots, and then you just click that and you click rename, and then you can really call yourself whatever you've wanted to be called your whole life, whatever that might be. We still got some people coming in. So you guys are not gonna be on video. Someone said that in the chat. So this is just kind of a webinar, and then obviously I invited these 2 in here, so we're all 3 panelists on video. But once you guys do have questions and stuff later, you'll be able to say that in the chat, and then we can answer questions and all that kind of stuff. So.
You guys want to go ahead and get started?
Yeah, well, let's wait maybe another minute or 2. We still got some people some people are hopping in and whatnot.
Are still trickling in. But I do want to respect the people that are currently on right now. So maybe wait until 7:35.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Marc, Tyrone's from DC.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my family's not from, they live down there. They're trying to recruit me to come down to DC, but I'm a Philly Bull. BOUL. Probably stay here for a while until DC rent prices increase.
My friend lived in Philly. Well, he was there, and then he moved out to Utah. Basically because COVID, he could work from home. So he was like, well, I'm going to go out and live in Utah for a month just to check it out and hike and stuff. So he's out there.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, my buddy just moved down to Miami. That was his dream to live out in Miami, and I was like, dude, go for it. Why not?
Yeah.
You don't have kids, you're not married, just go for it. Lease ended and moved down last week. So
that's awesome.
I was like, I don't know about Miami during COVID, but to each his own.
Yeah, it's pretty strict. All South Florida is really, really strict down there.
Oh, that's right. You were in Orlando?
Yeah, I've been down to Fort Lauderdale, Miami a couple times over the last few months, and it's like everything's closed at like 8 or 9, and a lot of the 8 restaurants and whatnot are still closed and everything. That's kind of like the hot spot of Florida, which for a long time Florida was the hot spot, and that's like the actual where like most of the cases are coming from. Some from Orlando too, but mostly like down south.
Gotcha. You guys want to jump in?
Yeah, we can start.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So who wants to start first? Which topic we knocking out?
Maybe we can do introductions to start off.
Yeah, that's cool.
That'd probably be a good start.
All right. So I'll start. My name is Mark Russell out of Philadelphia. You guys might have heard that. I am the owner and founder, I love saying that, of Better Wallet. So a little bit about me. I mentioned live in Philadelphia. I started working out of college at Vanguard, so that gave me a pretty good base of personal finance in general. What people are looking for in their investment portfolios and how to invest the right way. So luckily, I learned from some of the best, including Jack Bogle, who really founded Vanguard and was able to give some of his principles about passive investing down to some of the managers within Vanguard, and thus I learned from them. So after leaving Vanguard, I worked for a private equity shop called Franklin Square Investments, and then moved to a company called SEI, where I work currently as a technically a licensed advisor, but I more use my stockbroking license other than that. So the reason why I created Better Wallet is I come from very humble beginnings, and I realized that there's a lot that I've learned from being in the hood all the way to becoming a financial advisor. So what I created Better Wallet for is to teach everyone everything in between, from budgeting to understanding how to invest the right way, to if private equity is something you want to get into, I can talk about that as well. So it's been a fun journey. It's been fun partnering with these two idiots, Tyler and Brennan. But no, in all seriousness, it's been a lot of fun. Discovered a lot of great information along the way from other people who might be experts in real estate. So my job is to pass that information on to everyone else. So that's a little bit about me. And I don't know who's next.
Yeah, so I am Brennan Schlagbaum, not Brendan as it says on my screen. My account is Budget Dog. So what kind of got me started was the debt payoff journey. So if you guys know anything about my page or been following me for a while, I paid off $76,000 of debt within 1 year. So to say the least, that was a lot. But I say and what I really mean is my wife and I. So we have no kids, but it was my wife and I, and we paid off 40,000 student loans and multiple other debts in 1 year. So basically, how do we do that, right? And so we got extremely detailed. I'm a CPA. I work for Deloitte during my day job, and I audit Fortune 500 companies all the time. But I don't necessarily dig into the personal finance on a day-to-day. So a lot of people think I'm a CPA, so therefore I do everything with personal finance. I really don't. I'm actually more on the business side versus the personal investor side. But
so
I learned a ton
taxes
through my process. What's that?
So you could do my taxes. That's all I heard.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody thinks because I'm a CPA, I do taxes. I don't do taxes whatsoever. But anyways, I paid off all this debt. I learned a ton, and I started helping people one-on-one locally. So then I realized, why can't I do this on a more global scale? So I figured, let's go to social media. Let's make this a bigger thing. So that's where my account from Budget Dog came from. I've had a ton of success with a lot of people one-on-one. I've coached over hundreds of people at this point, and gotten them to exactly where they want to be. Haven't had a unhappy customer to this date. So that's what I continue to do. I'm trying to help as many people as possible. So I do this solely for helping people not to make a paycheck. But my ultimate goal is to do this full time. So I have to make a little bit of money. So I usually have people pay for my time, and that's about it. Other than that, I don't charge. And I'm really trying to take this to the next level, guys. So if you aren't following me, go ahead and follow me. And you'll kind of understand a little bit more about what I'm about. And then we'll go from there. But I'll hand it over to Tyler as well.
Yeah, guys. So my name's Tyler Wright. Obviously I run the account that's Defining Wealth. As far as my finance background, I went to college, got a bachelor's degree in finance. I actually ended up in sales, but I've always kind of had this love for math, money, finance in general. And so over the last, really 10 years, I've just been, studying, learning, reading, all that kind of stuff as far as everything related to personal finance, stock market, real estate, all these kind of things. And I guess I got to a point during COVID, actually, at the very beginning, where, with everybody working from home, I feel like I just had more time on my hands, just because my business is very, it's a bunch of people like kind of in a sales pit screaming at each other all day. So when that wasn't going on, I felt like I had like this time, and I just started to kind of think about kind of maybe what was missing in my life. And what I found out was that I felt like contribution was what I was kind of missing. And I wanted to kind of contribute. I wanted to give back. I wanted to teach people things that I've learned, and also, in addition, learn from other people. So I kind of created my account with the idea of it being literally, defining what wealth is. And wealth to me isn't just necessarily financial. It's also physical, mental, spiritual, leadership, all that kind of stuff. So that's why you'll start to see, I post about a bunch of different things. A lot of it tends to be more related towards finance, because I feel like that's where maybe I have the most to offer, and also where I feel like there's a big need and also a big want for people. So that's where I tend to share, my knowledge, really experience related to anything with personal finance, investing in stocks, and then also rental real estate and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how I got started with this. And, that's my story. So I don't know if one of you guys want to hop into kind of what you're, going over, and then we'll just kind of go round robin and go from there.
Yeah, just a quick summary real fast. I think this is really important for the attendees. You're talking to people that really know their stuff, right? So you have on this call, you have a licensed stockbroker, a licensed financial advisor, a CPA, a financial coach, 2 finance degrees, and then an accounting degree, right? So there's a lot of knowledge that can come from us. So I would say, take this hour to ask any question you might have, because more than likely one of us knows, the answer to that question. As we kind of talk about our different topics, I'm going to be brief. Brendan probably won't be. I would encourage you to, kind of think of what questions you want to go over, and then we'll try and answer those within the allotted time that we have.
Yeah.
But Brendan, you want to jump in?
I can start off with kind of I'll do my 5-second summary of kind of the $76,000 in debt. So obviously that was a huge hurdle for us. And so that's kind of how my journey started, right? And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Probably 10 years in total when I started racking that debt up, but about 4 or 5 years ago when it started paying it down, and within a year, obviously. So that consisted of $40,000 of student loans, $21,000 in cars, $5,000 in a bed loan. Literally I sleep in my bed. I was paying a loan on that. So what I was sleeping on. It was bad. It was bad. It's like a furniture debt, right? It's just an awful decision. And then the remaining was an engagement ring. So I'm not going to put the price on that, but you guys can probably do the math. So those debt payments totaled $2,000 per month. And so obviously we could afford the payment. So I'm the CPA. I'm kind of the nerd of the relationship. And so when we were talking, I was like, we need to get this together. So I started creating a budget. I created a balance sheet. For those of you guys that don't understand what a balance sheet is, so a budget's one thing of the personal finance equation, but a balance sheet tells you your net worth. So it lists your assets and liabilities. And when you look at a balance sheet, your assets should obviously outweigh your liabilities. But in our case, it wasn't really that case. And so from a budget perspective, I could pay off all the payments very easily. We had a lot of cash flow. We were still investing at the end of the month. Everything was good from that perspective. But I realized I was locked into those payments. One, I was for probably another 30 years, like with the mortgage. And then the balance sheet just was lopsided, right? So I was gung ho. I was like, we have to figure this out. She was on board, but she wasn't really a math person. She's more the artistic side of things. And so she went in, she was like, I'm full force with this. I understand where you're coming from. I understand the why, which is what really sold her. So, you know, a lot of times people are on these debt cycles, right? And everyone thinks debt's just normal. Everyone has it, but it's kind of like divorce. Like 50% of people go through divorce, but it takes a toll on people that go through divorce. Like it is a horrible, horrible thing, but it's so normalized that people don't really think much about it, right? It's just like, yeah, he got divorced, she got divorced, and we go on with our day. Same thing with debt. And so like that was kind of my story of how we paid that off. So what did we use? Obviously I mentioned a budget. I mentioned a balance sheet. We also had a debt payoff calculator. So I actually had an Excel spreadsheet, being the CPA nerd that I am, and literally listed every single debt to the penny, to the exact date that we're going to pay it off. And we attacked that. We had a plan, we set it up, and every single month we made no exceptions. Our budget, we restricted obviously the expenses side of things, but we also try to increase our income as well. And then we got on a detailed written plan. It wasn't rocket science. It wasn't something that like you guys, nobody can do. Anybody can really do it. And we just got intentional and we attacked until it was gone, right? On top of that, we cut our food was one of the bigger expenses. So we got really, really detailed with what we were going to eat. And so we were pretty healthy as well, or try to at least eat healthy. And so with that, we made sure we were eating healthy, but also cheap and frugal. So she put together a bunch of budget meals. I actually have it in my store. 17 meals that we regularly ate to save money and eat healthy and also be, you know, make it convenient, right? So we'd meal prep and stuff like that. So that took a lot of time, right? It took a lot of time to plan. It took a lot of time to like mentally prepare for it. But it took a toll on us. So we made sure we were gung ho about it, and we had a mapped out plan for a year, and we attacked it, and we hit that goal. So the reason I say that is because a lot of people look at their debt and it's overwhelming, and they think, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. You're embarrassed to talk to somebody. You're embarrassed to explain that, like in my position, I had a $5,000 bed loan. Like, I'm not going to go tell my parents that. Like, they're going to obviously disapprove of that, right? And so you feel kind of entrapped. So I think the biggest thing, and it's basic, but a budget, a balance sheet, and a debt payoff calculator are 3 tools that are going to really, really help you, and really, really focus on it. Don't just say, you know, I'm going to pay off $50,000 in 2 years. Like, map out the monthly payments of how you're going to get to that point. In detail, the more detail, the better. And so that was from a technical perspective of like kind of how we did it. But also, we did not do vacations. We did no splurge spending. We totally went rogue, hung out at the house every weekend, no social life, no bars, no friends stuff. We were totally focused because the debt in our future outweighed those temporary weekend types of times, right? Communication was huge. So there were times where it was like a weekend, a Friday, Saturday night, and she was like, we got to get out of the house. We got to go do something. And like, so we worked that kind of stuff in the budget a little bit, but we communicated. We made sure we were on the same page the whole time, because that's a huge piece of it. If you have a spouse, to communicate. Other than that, discipline, consistency, no rocket science. It's just consistency, communication, and sticking to a plan. So that's kind of my, I guess you could say, 5 to 10 minute spiel of kind of how I did it. But I'm teaching people how to do it. I create plans all the time for people over at my page, one-on-one consultations. So if you guys need help, do not feel like you don't have somebody to help you. We're there for you. All you got to do is reach out to us and we will help. So that's my little take. So Tyler, Mark, whoever wants to go next on their topic.
That's fine. I'll go if that's cool. So, I mean, I just want to kind of go over, you know, because everybody could be at a different level here. So I just want to like set a base foundation here of really what is debt. So debt, obviously, is you borrowing money that's not yours, and typically there's going to be some sort of rates and interest rate attached to that, and so you're paying back the principal balance, which is the amount that you're borrowing, right? If you borrow $100,000, or let's say you borrow $20,000 for a car, right? The $20,000 is your principal balance, and then there's a interest rate that is given to you by the lender, and that's what you're paying in addition to that principal. So if it's 5%, you're paying back that principal balance every year, but you're also paying back 5% over the course of the years that you're paying it, paying the loan back. So now there's good debt and there's bad debt, and good debt is not inherently good or inherently bad. And you can ask 2 or 3 different people and maybe get 2 or 3 different answers, but for the most part, it's not what debt it is. It's kind of how you're using it is how I would consider it to be good or consider it to be bad. Now, regardless of whether it's good, which would be a situation like good debt would be you're using it to make more money, right? A business loan, a rental real estate where you're bringing in more money than the loan payment itself, and it could be a car payment if you are renting out that car or using that car like a business does as capital to bring in more money. So, loans themselves, like I said, a car, a house, student loan, even a credit card. I mean, credit card 9 times out of 10 is going to be a bad idea, but theoretically in some magical world where you're using a credit card to fund something where you're making more than the interest that you're paying, I'm not going to say it could be a good option, but it's the least likely of the 4. But credit cards, student loans, home loans, and car loans. So a lot of people I heard asking, hey, what should I focus on first? And so there's a couple different ways to do it. As far as you can look and try to pay off the smallest balance first, and then take that payment. If your smallest balance is $50 a month or whatever it is, you want to focus on making the minimum payments on all of them, but then putting everything towards that smallest balance, and then you take that minimum payment plus the extra amount you're putting it in, and then you focus on the next one and the next one, the next one. Now there's another method where which might be more beneficial is focusing on which one has the highest interest rate. Now, like a credit card, like if you're, some of your credit cards, you would need to check your statement or check with your bank, but it could be anywhere from sometimes 14 to 16 to upwards of 22 to 24% per year that you were paying in interest. So, if you've got it depends on your specific situation. So I'm not going to say, you should do this, this, and this, because if you have $200 on a credit card, it's a lot different than having $10,000 or $20,000 on a credit card. But if you had $10,000 on a credit card at a 20% interest, that means you're paying $2,000 per year, and none of that is going to pay down that $10,000 balance. That's just interest. So that's something you really got to be aware of is what is my interest rate on my loan, and then what is the overall balance of the loan. Some people will ask, should I use money to pay down a credit card or a student loan or a home loan or a car loan? Like I said, it really kind of depends on your exact situation. So I don't want to try to put or generalize, which one you should pay off first, but typically paying off a credit card is going to be the best idea for most people. And then you would work on whatever the highest percent loan is next. So you can kind of do a balance of just paying more towards like on a car or a house. I know a lot of people, I typically do this where I'll make my payment on I just paid off my truck last week. So it was a 5-year loan. I paid off in 3 years. And what I did is just, I made the payment something that I could pay regardless of whether or not my income continued to increase. I actually treated it as if, hey, what can I afford if I actually made less money than I do right now? Like if I made, 70 to 80%, that way, typically, hopefully, especially in a sales job like I'm in, if I continue to do my job, I'll increase over time. But what I did is said, hey, what if things don't go well? And I think that's what a lot of people, they get in trouble because they go, oh, well, I might not be able to afford this car, or this house, or whatever it is right now, but I'm going to be making more money next year and more money the next year. But as we know, life, a lot of times we don't get to decide what's thrown at us. So we need to be conservative in the amount of debt that we're bringing on, and make sure that whatever it is, we have a good, solid understanding of how it's going to affect our financial future, and understanding, is that a good decision for me? Because you could want to buy a car, right? And you might decide in some situations taking out a loan on a car might be a good idea, right? But it depends on if you're making $500,000 a year or you're making $30,000 a year and you don't have any money to invest. So there's a lot of different factors. A lot of it's your income, a lot of it's your other expenses. But as far as good debt and bad debt, like I said, good debt would be characterized mostly as debt that you're using to make more money, and bad debt I would consider to be a liability, which would be technically would be your car, would be your house, would be your credit cards, student loans. But like I said, you've also got to factor in what is that bringing your life, and is the value of it, right? A place to live, like maybe a home is a best situation for you as opposed to renting. And that's a whole nother conversation as well. But really, I think the best thing to do is know thyself, really, and know thy financial self, and learn more about what are my interest rates on my credit card, what is my interest rate on my house, what is my interest rate on my student loan, and all these different things. And like Brennan was saying, getting your situation together, getting your balance sheet together, getting your budget together. Because if you don't know where you're at, there's no way to know where you're going. Because if you're trying to get to Kansas and you're in Philadelphia, that's a different route. There's different directions. If you're in Cincinnati, it's different directions. There's a different way to get there. So it's really figuring out where you're at and where you're trying to go, and then trying to piece together kind of the middle part. So that would be kind of my piece on debt in general.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, you have to understand your financial picture before you start building a plan in order to fix it or turn it around. So yeah, to kind of talk about my situation, I'll probably just go through how much debt I had coming out of school. So similar to Brennan, I came in to Philadelphia or into Vanguard with credit card debt, student loan debt. I had a car note I had to pay off as well, because of course, if you get a new job, you need to get a new car because you have to travel to work. So credit card debt was close to, let's say, about like 10K. And I should also mention, I put myself through school, so I had to do what I needed to do in order to make that happen to get the 4-year degree. Then student loan debt, you had private loans, you also had federal loans, and then my car, which luckily I bought it used, and I actually worked with one of my cousins in order to get a pretty good deal on it. But that was around $20,000. So what I found out over the first, let's say, 2-3 years out of school was that I spent way too much money. I spent more money than I thought I could. I mean, like I was going out and I was paying $300 a night to drink, to have fun, to eat out. Back before Ubers, I was taking taxis. And I realized after a few years that I was spending more money than what I had, mostly just to keep up with the lifestyle and appeal to my friends who, in their eyes, they were like, "Hey, you work in finance, that means you should have money, right?" And for me, I was just like, "Yeah, sure." Like, I've earned the ability to spend this money, and I was using my credit card and using extra cash in order to do that, which wasn't the best way. So in 2017, I wanted to get my ass in order. And I knew before I did that, I had to understand again how much money I was actually spending. So I started tracking every single dollar that I spent for a course of a month. And I realized that, spending a lot of money just going out, drinking, having fun with my friends, clothes, buying new shoes, gas, transportation in different places. And I knew that couldn't last. I didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck into my 30s, into my 40s, when I have kids, and I didn't want them to have to deal with that. I slowly realized in 2017 that I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of other people. In fact, most people live paycheck to paycheck. And if you were to ask me, one of the bigger issues in the personal finance world for um, specifically Americans is that not only are people living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of these companies are living paycheck to paycheck. We've realized that during COVID, as companies, small companies and larger companies were shutting down. And then if you think about the US is $23 trillion in debt, right? So they're not really, they're not a model that we can truly go off of. How do you get out of debt? How do you spend more strategically in order to have more money at the end and then, start paying off debt or to save or to invest? And everyone thinks it's some magic bullet, Bitcoin, crypto, you win a lottery. I'm telling you, if you focus in on on building a budget and understanding the expenses that you have on a day-to-day basis, you will end up paying off that debt, no lie, 3-4 years in most cases. Because if you're able to control how much you spend, you'll realize how much money you actually do have in order to pay off debt, to save, and to invest. How do you limit overall expenses? Things that work for me. I had to ignore the Joneses. So I had friends that are in finance. I had friends on Wall Street. I had friends that are engineers that could really do what the hell they wanted to do with their money. And sorry for cussing, but my dad was a sailor. My mom was a high security prison guard. So I had to do that. I had to understand what my needs were versus my wants. Buying new clothes for the most part is a want. You can go and you can buy new clothes almost anywhere. You can go to thrift shops and you get clothes for fairly free. As we think about needs, they're the things that you need to do in order to survive. And Brennan kind of talked about it. It's, food, it's, a shelter over your head. It's water, things like that to keep you alive. That's what I hyper focused on for the 3 years I was paying off my debt. And that really helped out because it completely separated, hey, like going to restaurants, going out. I love Indian food, going to eat Indian food, drinking, whatever it might be. And then really focusing in on, okay, like I need a roof over my head. I need to, make sure I'm eating, but not, going out and paying a tip or whatever it might be. I don't need to drink, though right now. Nowadays, I feel like I do, but you don't really need to drink, and that all adds up. You also have to understand what your financial goals were. I knew by the time I turned 30, I wanted to be debt free. Debt free 2020 was my big thing. Debt free by 30 was, the hashtag that we use for almost all my posts. And then I think one of the most important parts of paying off your debt and understanding your spending is holding yourself accountable. And if you feel like you can't hold yourself accountable, you need other people to hold you accountable. So the debt-free community, I think we might have mentioned it before, really helped me to do that, because I had people on my back saying, okay, you paid $200 less in debt this month. What's going on? What did you do? How much did you spend it on something else? Oh, you're taking a vacation? Oh, my bad. I forgot you were paying off debt, right? So I had people holding me accountable, and frankly, I was holding them accountable during, those 3 years and into now. So it pays to have good friends that can help you stick to your goals. So I mentioned budgeting and the importance of budgeting in general. And I would say budgeting comes down to 4 major categories. Number one, understanding how much money you make on a monthly or biweekly basis. Understanding your fixed expenses. And I feel like most people stop there. And they say, okay, like I have a list of bills and I know how much money I make. That's my budget. That couldn't be farther from the truth. That's just a list of bills. I think I made a post about that before. Number 3 and number 4 are really, really important, and frankly, maybe more important than 1 and 2. Number 3 is variable expenses, understanding how much money you're making or how much money you're losing on a variable basis. Let's say going out to restaurants or paying for Ubers, money that you might give out to family members. Like, you need to understand that, because that is the reason on why most people end up getting overdraft fees on the Mondays or Tuesdays after the weekends because of variable expenses that they didn't have in their budget. And then number four, after you understand how much money you make, how much in fixed expenses you have to pay out, how much in variable expenses you have to pay out, you also have to understand how much money is left. And that's what we call disposable income or money left over. That's the money, that number four is a result of keeping your expenses low and also making sure you know how much money you make. So the trick is you have to limit overall fixed expenses, which can be fairly easy for most people, right? You can always go to Geico and say, hey, like I need a lower rate. But what's most important is keeping the variable expenses low. As mentioned, drinking, going out to restaurants, what have you. And if you're able to do that, then number four, disposable income will rise. So what I did over the last 3 years was focusing on, okay, I don't really need to go out all too often. I don't need new clothes. I don't need to take Ubers everywhere I go. Maybe I can walk. I don't need to go out, Friday and Saturdays and maybe even Sundays. Maybe I can just go out on Friday. And then my disposable income, year after year started increasing from paycheck to paycheck to, having thousands of dollars left over. And what I do with that added money, I apply it to debt. And then little after little, as Tyler was talking about, you're paying off your credit card debt, you're paying off your car. If you have a home, you're paying off your home. And then as you're paying those off, you tend to have more and more money left over. And it's more of like an avalanche, if you can think about it as that analogy. And as you pay off debt, then you're able to save more money. And then as you're able to save more, you can invest more. So I see a lot of people go from, hey, I have all this debt and I'm paying off this debt. And then they want to invest. And they're on two different, sides of the table, right? Like you want to make sure you pay off debt so that you can save and then you can invest. Like if you skip that step, by the time that you invest and something drastically wrong drastically wrong happens in your life, then you're going to be backtracking. You're going to be selling out your investments and it's going to be worse than what it was before. So make sure you're following those steps in order to invest properly. And I promise you, it will be one of the best decisions that you've ever made. So that's my tidbit. I know we have 23 minutes. I want to make sure we're going over some of the questions that came up during the chat. The first one that I saw, specific to Vanguard, so I'll handle this one. So I don't remember who.
It's Tyrone.
Tyrone.
Yeah, Tyrone asked it.
He was asking about Vanguard minimums, right? So as you think about investing, there are two very popular ways of investing, specifically with Vanguard. And you have mutual funds and you have ETFs. Tyrone, you're talking specifically about mutual funds and that the minimum tends to be around 3,000, which is true. They do have minimums of 1,000 in some of their funds, but there aren't many. So you have mutual funds, which is one bucket, and then you have ETFs. ETFs were created not too long ago. A lot of them have minimums of about $50 to $100. So it's pretty easy to jump into them. And the reason why I love ETFs is that it gives you all the benefits of mutual funds, but also gives you more diversification. You have it for lower fees. And what I personally like is that you could do intraday trading. What does that mean? So with the mutual fund, when you buy into a mutual fund, the price that you get is a price at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? So that's when they calculate what they call the NAV. With ETFs, you can buy into it intraday. So if it was 12.31 right now, I can buy in and I would get that price, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower than what I thought it would be. So that's really the key benefits of ETFs. So if you're looking to invest and you're trying to get diversification, you want a bundle of stocks very similar to a mutual fund, I ask you to take a look at ETFs and see if they might be something that could help you reach your investment goals. So hopefully that answers your question, Tyrone.
I'll grab two of these real quick. Just I'll answer one of these. So Jocelyn, I think she was referring. Can you go over what debt to make more money means? I mean, debt to make more money is obviously like a business loan. You can think of it a number of different ways. I mean, for me, like I have real estate, I have rental real estate. So the mortgages or the refinances or whatever on those houses, obviously I don't own all of those houses. I have a loan on that house, but my loan payment might be $400 or $500 a month, but I'm getting $1,200-$1,500 in rent. So I would be making more than the loan. So that'd be using debt. That's obviously a much more like an advanced form of debt. I think that the main thing is to before you even get to the point where you're trying to use debt to make money is making sure you don't have your own debt that's losing you money, I guess. Would be like a good way to start for sure. But and then the other one, Sally Chu said, where do you think college undergraduates should start on their journey of being in control of their personal finance? For me, when I was in college, luckily, when I was in high school, I graduated like pretty near the top of my class. I applied for a bunch of scholarships, and I essentially went to college, almost for free as far as tuition and books and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing, is obviously just doing well in school, working hard, that kind of stuff. But I also worked 2 or 3 jobs during college. So whatever money I needed for like food and, rent and some of the variable expenses, like Marc was saying, I worked jobs to do that. So as far as making it through college, that's kind of the answer. But really the same, I would give the same answer to college undergraduates as I would to anybody else. And that's, if you don't have a foundation, create the foundation. So all these things that we're talking about as far as a budget, and figuring out where your money's coming in, how your money's going out, all these different things. There's never a time that is too early to start learning about these things. So you need to be reading books. You need to be following Better Wallet. You need to be following Budget Dog. You need to be following Defining Wealth. And jumping in this community, honestly, on Instagram, I wish I would have found it a long time ago, because there's even the people in the community, they challenge my thoughts. Even if there's something I see that I don't agree with, then it makes me go look it up. It makes me go educate myself further on whatever it is, and then make my decision. So getting yourself around people that are thinking like you're thinking, whether that be on Instagram, whether that, obviously in real life, educating yourself as much as possible, setting that foundation as far as budgeting, making income, just learning how the whole process works. So that would be my answer for that. Brennan.
Yeah, just if I could pick it back off of that real fast. With college, one thing that I hyper focused on when I was in college is making sure that I limited the overall damage that I would have when I graduated in 2012. Right, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have that much in student loan debt, and I did everything possible to limit that. So one thing I did, I became a resident assistant. Or RA. So essentially you're the babysitter for, freshmen, maybe sophomore students at your university. And that is a good way to limit your tuition. So I think they paid a few $1,000s of my tuition. My room and board was completely free. And all I really needed to do was put up different posters and make sure my kids didn't kill themselves. Like that was my job. And that saved me a lot of money by the time that I graduated in 2012. So that's number one. Number two, you can pay some of your interest on your loans while you're in school. I wish I would have done that. I was trying to every semester figure out how I was going to pay off my tuition. But if I was making more money, I was able to cover my tuition. I would start making payments towards my student loans. Because if you're able to do that over the course of 4 years, then the amount that you owe starting after the 4 years will be significantly less. So I would say that, and high level, just limit the overall damage that you're going to have by the time that you graduate. And then going back to the question before, just debt in general and how you should be thinking about that. So Tyler's absolutely right. To expand on that just a little bit, when you think about debt, if you think about it like how a company thinks about it. So, Vanguard, if you think about Amazon, Apple, they think about debt in a completely different way. And I think is how we should think about it as well. So you have the difference between debt and you have leverage, right? So when you think about leverage, you think of a college education, you think about return on investment. How long is it going to take for you to make a bunch of money from the investment that you made? So in my head, I was like, okay, my break even point being that how long will it take me to pay off my debt so I can start making money from it? My break even point for college was 8 to 10 years in my head. So in my head, 30 plus, from 30 to the time that I die, I'm going to be making a profit off my college education. And that's why I thought of it as leverage. But if you look at credit card debt, for the most part, unless you're paying for a study abroad trip that helped you to get a job, your credit card debt tends to be bad debt because there's no return on investment with that. There's no return on investment for a Gucci watch that you pay for, using your credit card. So just kind of think of that in your head as you're taking on more debt, or if you're paying off debt, don't feel bad about it, because a lot of the times it's leverage. It's helping you to get to where you want to be at the end of the day. So I'll stop with that so we get to more questions.
Yeah. So I saw another question in the chat. So it said, let me pull it up again. So why do we always hear constantly buy VT Sacks instead of VTI? They're technically the same thing, except one is the ETF. Plus, I believe the expense ratio for VTI is less. So that's a really good question. And that's to follow up on Marc's point. So VT Sacks is the low cost index version of VTI, which is the total stock market index. VT Sacks is about a 0.04% expense ratio, where VTI is 0.03%. So I don't know necessarily if you have heard that. I would assume, first off, it doesn't matter which one you go. It's like Marc said, it's more a matter of preference. I don't know if that's a push because of ETFs being a newer thing in the market, and especially in the personal finance world, the firms like to push the ETFs. So that's likely why you're hearing that. You might be marketed as such, but I don't know. Marc, do you have any more insight on that specifically as to why those are pushed more? Because ultimately it's the same thing.
Yeah, they're the same. It depends on who you're talking to.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it depends on the client, and maybe one is more of a solution for most clients, 95% of people versus the other one. So it really depends on who you talk to. I hear them interchangeably all the time.
Yep. And then I saw another really good question. So, quite embarrassed. I'm way older, never had the knowledge or understanding of savings. I'm now living paycheck to paycheck, and I have nothing. I'm overwhelmed and don't know where to start. So do not feel ashamed. This is extremely normal. Kind of like I said earlier, divorce is 50% of people in America. Everyone kind of overlooks it as if it's just whatever, but it destroys people. Same thing with debt. So do not feel as if you are one and only. Like, this is very, very common to be in your position. I would say that number one, get a budget. So you have to understand what you currently are, what's coming in, what's going out. So if you don't know that from a beginning perspective, it's hard to even start with a plan, right? I'd say number two, get a balance sheet, because that kind of gives you your overall financial snapshot. So that tells you where your net worth is, how many liabilities you have, how much are those liabilities, and then how much assets you have, and then you can kind of shift it around to maximize it. So you kind of use the budget, the what's left over at the end of the month, to improve the balance sheet. So they kind of go hand in hand together. But getting a written plan, a very, very detailed plan, and really focusing in on it and saying, hey, I'm done with whatever I've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. Like, it is time to get this together, and now I'm going to do it. Put it on literally go onto Excel, get a piece of paper out and write this stuff down in detail. If you have a spouse, tell them your why. Like, so if they don't really fully understand it and it's dragging you down, mentally every day, talk to them, tell them why do I want to do this? It's not just because I want to make more money. It's because my day's ruined because I constantly am thinking about this and it's tearing me down. So get on a detailed written plan. Do not feel ashamed. Any of us three can probably help you. So if you DM us on Instagram, we can definitely help you. And understand that your potential is probably a lot greater than you're expecting once you actually put it onto paper and lay out the plan. Because a lot of people get so distraught when they see their financial situation or think about it, and then they put it onto a plan and they're like, wow, this is actually attainable, right? Like if I go to the gym 7 days a week, I'm going to lose 5 pounds a week. So it works just like that, guys. It's not overly complicated, but the first thing is asking for help. Don't feel ashamed. I went to school and I was a double major in finance and accounting, and by no means am I a brainiac. I had tutors. I asked for help. I didn't really give a damn. Like in high school, I'd always reach out for help, and people might be like, oh, you're the one asking the dumb question in class, but ultimately I don't really care because it helped me. And most of those people just didn't ask the question because they were intimidated or their ego would have been poked at, so just ask the question, ask for help. Because there's a lot of people like us three right here that are willing to help people and want to help people to better their situation. So I think that would be your best piece of advice for that question.
Yeah, and I would just to expand on that, the mental part of paying off debt and investing and saving is maybe even more important than the actual plan and reach your goal. I know I had to overcome that because I was like, okay, like I'm the only person that had to put myself through school. I'm the only person that have credit card debt. I'm the only person, that, I'm 29 and still have, student loan debt. And that could have been farther from the truth. No matter what year you are or how old you are, there are other people, thousands to millions of people that are in the same situation. What's going to be different between you and them is that you will say, hey, today I'm going to join this webinar. I'm going to learn from these people. There's a lot of other people that would probably laugh and say, oh, like, I'm not going to join a webinar about me becoming debt free because I'm going to pay off my debt one day, right? So they don't have a plan. They're not taking the actual steps. And 5 years from now, your peers that are your same age that did not take the steps to pay off your debt, they're going to be asking you questions. They're going to ask you, hey, like, how did you become debt free? How are you able to invest? Why do you have $100,000 saved up? How are you able to retire on time? And that's what happened to me with some of my really close friends, that laughed at me 5 years ago when I said, hey, like, I'm going to really get my finances in order. And I'm not going out. I'm not, going out to different restaurants. I'm not going to be traveling because my goal when I'm 30 is that I want to be debt free. And now they all ask me questions. So I think that's number one, like really important, the mental side of things. And also I like to always go back to my favorite movie, The Lion King. You can laugh all you want, but Lion King is a shit. In The Lion King, there was a really important message that was given by Rafiki. So Rafiki, if you remember, hit Simba on the top of the head, and Simba was like, what is that for? He was like, it doesn't matter, it's in the past, right? So I used that in my life for everything. I went through adoption care. That was 13 years of my life. I put myself through school, which was 4 years of my life, which was miserable. I lived paycheck to paycheck, but when I became debt-free, nothing of those 29 years to 30 years didn't matter to me because I was focused in on what's happening now and what's going to happen into the future because of decisions that I made years ago. So no matter how old you are, just think about all that being in the past and focusing in on the future and how beneficial it's going to be for you and your family, and then the money that you're going to be able to pass down to them. So think about what that's going to do versus what happened in the past. To quote my man Rafiki.
I saw somebody walking around, I'm not making this up today, with a Timon and Pumbaa shirt on and said Hakuna Matata. So whatever that's worth, but I think it was meant to be.
No worries.
It means
I was Simba for Halloween at one point. I don't know what age. I think 5 maybe.
I think we all were at some point.
Yeah.
Kimberly Smith, this is one's from like the Q&A. Didn't want to forget about those. She said, do you suggest paying off smaller credit cards and then larger ones? I assume you mean smaller balanced credit cards and then larger ones, unless you have cards that are different sizes. But The smaller credit cards, that is kind of what I was going over earlier. If we're saying that they're all the same interest rate, which I'm just going to assume that because I don't know what all your different interest rates are and how many credit cards you have, but theoretically, yes, you could pay off the smallest loan first. You want to make sure that you're always making the minimum payments because you don't want to go past obviously due on your balance and not pay anything. So you want to make all those minimum payments, and then if you have extra money left over that you are sectioning off for debt, yes, you can put that to the smaller balance. And what that's going to do typically is you're going to be able to pay that off faster than you would be able the other ones. So you're able to take that extra money that you were putting there plus whatever that minimum payment is, and then work on the next one. And then also, just outside of a financial perspective, it's also like a mental perspective. So it's saying, hey, I accomplished something. I checked that off. I got that off my balance sheet. And so it's it works also to motivate you as well as put you in a better financial situation. Let's see. Jocelyn, she basically said, if you currently have no credit card debt, what would be the first step in the right direction for accumulating more wealth? And then she referenced, should I invest in the stock market or real estate? It depends on a lot of things. And like I said, I'd have to look at your balance sheet and see what else you maybe have going on. But I think when you look at the stock market versus real estate, because I do both. I have probably half my money in the stock market and half my money in real estate. But what I would say is that you want to focus on one thing first. You don't want to try to do both of them at the same time and try to put too much on your plate and try to figure out, how to invest in stocks and how to invest in real estate. What I will say is the stock market can be a lot less work than real estate. Real estate, at least getting it set up and finding a house and finding a realtor and finding a contractor and financing, refinancing, all this different stuff is a lot of work. Where with stocks, you can buy some of these things that you guys were talking about earlier, like ETFs or something like that, or like a target date fund, which will also diversify you not only amongst stocks, but also diversify your asset allocation amongst bonds and stocks and cash and all that different stuff. So the stock market, I would think would be that would be my first recommendation to start building wealth. Obviously, before you do anything, you want to make sure that you're educated on it. You don't want to be hopping in. I see a lot of people, you call it the Robin Hood phenomenon, but a lot of people are investing in companies that aren't good companies because they think they're going to make a quick buck here and there, or they're trying to make a fortune in a couple months. But there are good ways to do it. And like I said, you can talk to any three of us kind of after for some of those ideas, but you'd want to probably do something that diversifies you across the stock market and potentially, something globally diversifying you. And then, like I said, there's other options as well. I don't know if there's any.
Just to kind of expand on that. If you think of most people, what they do is they'll have stocks and bonds and cash, and then what they'll do is they'll have what they call satellites of different investments that can help diversify what they currently have. So stocks and bonds, they're meant to offset each other. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But people add in collectibles. So you might hear I'm trying to think of like gold coins or stamps, or the funny one that we hear all the time now is like Birkin bags, right? So like Kim Kardashian, she has her stocks, just to use a popular name. I don't recommend using what she uses, but she uses stocks, bonds, collectibles, let it be Birkin bags. So she has like 15 to 20 or something random. And then she probably has real estate, right? So she has real estate income coming in to help diversify her stocks and her bonds. And then, some people can use alternatives. So, the richest people in the world, they have private equity funds. Some people use crypto in order to diversify away, or let it be gold or what have you. And that creates more of a diversified total portfolio. But it all starts with that very solid core of stocks and bonds, depending on how much risk you're willing to take on. So I would say start with that. But there was one other thing that I feel like we didn't cover that is very important. You also want to make sure you have an emergency fund. So yes, you paid off debt. That's great. make sure you have an emergency fund, because if you don't have an emergency fund, none of the other, part 3, part 4, that doesn't matter. Have an emergency fund, because anything could happen. We learned with COVID in March that people can lose their job at any time. These companies do not care. So make sure you have an emergency fund you can fall back on. Once you have that, which should be 3 to 6 months of variable and fixed expenses, then you can start looking at stocks and bonds. And then level number 2 of that would be collectibles, real estate, crypto, if that's what you're into, private equity, in order to diversify that core holding, being stocks and bonds. But that's my take.
Budget Dog, I think that one's for you, my man.
Which one is it?
How do I get my partner on board?
Okay, this is a good question. Okay, so I'm trying to think of where to start here. So I'm going to say, when I was personally going through this situation, like I was the proactive one, and so my spouse was the so-called not proactive, right? It's not that she wasn't going to be on board, but I had to convince her. I had to explain it to her what was going on. So usually men in particular will go at their wife and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. This is how we're going to do it, and knock it out. The wife is going to look at the guy like he has 3 heads and probably not listen to him. And, well, I'm not going to do that. I want to do this, this, and this. Like, I want to do this way. Well, that's the wrong approach typically. So if you go, and it could be obviously the wife goes to the husband, the same thing, right? But typically you have to explain, first off, don't attack or don't tell the other one what we're going to do. Just kind of generally bring up the conversation, and it will kind of, transpire into a bigger conversation about, generalities of how you want to live, what your life looks like, and then kind of bring in the money aspect of it. And so they're going to understand the why. They're going to understand your emotion if they care about you. You guys are together. So if they, you guys are together for a reason, and they do care about you. So when you ask that question, or when you start bringing up the why, they're going to start to listen. And my wife says I don't listen all the time, so that might be the case, whatever. But
shocker.
The second I hear that tone in her voice where it's different than just, her talking, and it's really like, hey, you need to listen to me, I will turn off my computer, I'll turn off my phone, and I'll turn and look at her, right? And at that point, she has my attention, and I understand there is something that she has on her mind, and obviously something's weighing on her, so we need to address that, right? So I think really going in from that perspective without just saying, hey, because most of the time, the person with the proactive mindset will do all this stuff personally. They'll go to their spreadsheet and do everything, figure out the game plan, and then go straight at the spouse and tell them what we're going to do. And that's usually not the approach to take, but it's the most natural approach to take. So take a step back, explain to them the why, just overall generalities of life, and kind of work the money thing in. And I guarantee they'll start to listen. And if it gets, if it doesn't really work out the first time, it's not like, hey, this isn't ever going to work. Try it again. Explain it. Take a different route. You know your spouse better than I do. I just know how it worked with me personally. And just work with them. Talk to them. Communication's key. Like I was saying earlier, when I first started, we had to talk about different things. Like we still talk on a monthly, even a weekly basis of like, hey, what's in the budget? What are we going to add? What are we going to subtract? Does this make sense this month? Are we going to save money? All of these questions, but you have to have open communication. You can't be afraid to ask. For example, my wife decided to go to Dunkin' Donuts like 3 times this week. We didn't talk about that. And I was like, yo, what's up? Like, just playing, obviously. But like, if your spouse went out and like bought a purse or something like that, or your husband went out and bought like Nike gear or something, it racked up, and you're like, whoa, what is that? Like, make sure that you can have that comfortable conversation with them. Is like, hey, I thought we were on the same page here. Like, don't be in attack mode or attacking, but like be in that relationship that you guys can have the open communication, because that will change everything for you. And that's usually the thing that people don't expect to work, but it actually does.
I'll add some stuff to that, because a lot of talking about finance with your significant other is like talking about anything with your significant other. It's communication. It's really talking about anything with anybody that you work with, your friends, your family, your spouse, whatever it might be. And so one of the number one things that that I always tell people is that if it's a team, right? If I'm a coach and I'm trying to convince somebody, or I'm a boss, I'm trying to convince people to do things, I need us to come to this conclusion together. I can't tell them, hey, this is what I've done my research. This is what I think we should do, team. Now go do it. Because if they don't feel like they've contributed anything to the conclusion, then they're not going to be bought into the conclusion. So it comes with a conversation and figuring out, hey, where are they coming from? Because nobody's right or wrong, right? It's something that I learned in How to Win Friends and Influence People is, criminals, people that do things and they go to jail. If they thought they were doing something wrong, most of the time they wouldn't have done it. So you got to think, and that doesn't mean that your spouse is a criminal by any means, but everybody is doing things from their own perspective, their own environment, their own the things they've read, the people they've talked to, the neighborhood they grew up in. So you got to understand that people kind of come from their own life, and they see things through that lens. So you have to create that lens for him and kind of show him, hey, another thing is saying, hey, look at him in the eyes and saying, this is important to me. Like this is very important to me, and expressing that. And hopefully once he sees that, this is something that's very serious to you, he'll take it seriously. But you want to be careful. The last thing I wrote down is to not make it a hot topic, right? And I think, Brennan said this is don't attack, right? You don't want to attack him, because I know when my girlfriend, it's not about finances, but certain things that she'll, have kind of an attitude about, I come to despise those things, whatever those are. And you want to be careful that you don't make him despise the conversation, where every time you bring it up, he runs outside the house, or he, kind of ignores the conversation or whatever. So it needs to be a conversation. It needs to be something you guys come to together. You're going to be responsible. You might be the leader in this, right? There's not any kind of partnership there's not always going to be two people coming together and they're just synergistic completely. There might be a leader, and you might have to be that leader for your household. And that doesn't mean that he's any less right, but maybe he's leading in other areas in your lives, right? And maybe this is your responsibility to lead in the financial portion of your lives and kind of show him the way and show him the light in that category.
Yeah, well said.
Just to kind of expand on that, taking it a little bit more tactically, kind of think about with your spouse, what you want to be in 10 years. What do you want to achieve in 10 years? Because if you could say, hey, these are our financial goals, pay off our house or pay off our credit card debt or put our kids through school, it's really easy to agree upon those higher level 10-year goals, or let it be 15-year, whatever it might be. And then from there, you'll have, you have your 10-year, you have your 5-year, and then you have your 1-year goal. So think about, and I think right now is really important because we're in November, December's coming up. Maybe taking the 2 last weeks of the year and do a group meeting with your spouse and just saying, hey, like, here's our 10-year goal, or here's what I'm thinking as a 10-year goal. Let's agree upon that. And then 5-year, and then this is what we're going to do into 2021 in order to get to that point 10 years from now. And that all comes down to the day-to-day tactical things that you're doing, let it be going to Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or vacations, whatever it might be that might be taking away from your end goal. And it'll help you to hyper focus on that. So have budgeting meetings every month in order for you to have 12 different times you're having a conversation. So at the end of the year, you're accomplishing that goal. And if you do that 10 different times, reach your financial goals at the end of the day. But that's wildly different from just going in and saying, we need to save more money for our kids' college education, or we need to stop spending money right now so we can pay off credit cards. Have them believe in what's going to happen in 10 years if you're able to do everything correctly. And I think it'll be a much easier conversation.
Yeah. And they even may have if you guys go in with the mindset of like a goal and you have a plan of attack, but you haven't yet set it, they might come with a different perspective that you're like, hey, that actually kind of works like as well. Like, and then at that point you guys mesh really, really well. And the plan works 100 times better. So that's always something to take into consideration.
I think we got one more here in the Q&A, and then it looks like it. So we're probably honestly probably good on time as well. The last one was any tips on cutting expenses, cell phone bills, refinancing loans, grocery shopping. I mean, my general tip on cutting expenses would be really like kind of we went over earlier is literally exporting. Like if you, I don't know if you use a debit card or cash or, figuring out the life of your dollar bill, like how it comes in and how it goes out. And, if you're able to export, like if you use a credit card or a debit card, export literally your expenses. So you have to look at them because I had a budget like, years ago, I had a budget, right? I'm like, oh, well, these are my bills and here's some various expenses. And this is, kind of what I, want to spend on food. And once I printed out and looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, you're a POS, right? I'm like, you're spending kind of like Marc was talking about. I was spending a bunch of money on like food and like going out and dinners, and there was just little things. So I think like the biggest thing is looking, like I was saying earlier, knowing thyself, figuring out exactly what it is, and figuring out what those numbers are, and then once you see it, on an Excel sheet, you can say, hey, I spent $200 or $600 or $1,200 on restaurants and eating out or whatever, then it's very easy to say, hey, if I just didn't do this like 1 or 2 times, that would make a big difference. And then the other thing is on expenses, what I tell people is attack your biggest things first. Because if you're able to attack your rent and your car loan and your insurance or whatever your biggest expenses are, and that might be food and alcohol and restaurants or whatever, but it's just math, right? You're able to take, if you have a $1,500, $2,000 rent payment and you move into a place that's maybe a little bit cheaper, you get a roommate or whatever, you're able to take a lot more out of a $2,000 payment than spending $30 a month on Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. There's just only so much that you can do there. So you want to attack the big things first. And then, like I said, just basically take a look at your situation.
Yeah, that's really true. And that's what I try to do with my fixed expenses when, I was paying off debt. So I literally took a deep dive into each one of the different categories. So I knew I paid, $300, lived in, center city, Philadelphia. I was paying $300 for insurance. And at the time I was with State Farm, and I was like, okay, I can get that down to 100 somehow through negotiation by going to Geico and saving 15%, whatever it might be. I knew I can get that lower, right? Each category you can get lower. My cell phone, I had AT&T initially. I went to T-Mobile because it was cheaper. And then I said, screw it. I'm going to go straight talk. I'm going to pay $45 a month because I know it's going to be the same as, T-Mobile and Verizon or AT&T, whatever it might be. And then you just take a very good look at all that, let it be, your cell phone or how much you're paying for a car or even rent, as Tyler mentioned, finding a place that's $1,000 versus, something that's, 1,500. And then slowly but surely those expenses will be lower and lower. And then take a deep dive into your variable expenses, how much you're paying at restaurants. If you're paying $300 a month, maybe you could do 100 and maybe go out every other week versus every week. And then as I mentioned earlier, then you'll have a higher disposable income or money that is not being used for anything. And then you can start paying down debt, saving or investing. But yeah, that's at least how I went about doing it.
Yeah, and I'd say look at your needs and wants and look at your goals. So so a lot of people don't distinguish the difference between a need and a want. And make sure you understand, food, clothing, and shelter are your needs. Everything else, is a pretty much a want, right? And so understand your goals as well. So don't just like bare minimum cut everything out and live a really awful life and you're dreading it every single day just because. But if you understand, hey, I need to, reach $10,000 in my savings. If I cut this expense for 5 months specifically, I'm going to have $10,000 instead of just going crazy and cutting every single expense out. Look at your goals, where you got to reach and do the math to get there. And then maybe once you hit that $10,000 goal, add it back in the budget. Because budgets are not restrictive. And a lot of people think that. And so it scares people away from even starting one. They're supposed to just say where your money's going, tell you where your money's going. And when you do that, it changes your mindset with the budget itself. It creates a positive relationship with it, and it actually works for you better long term.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Make sure you have a little bit of a gap there. Sorry.
Right.
Where you have $100, $200, whatever it might be, for strictly fun money. When I realized that, you know, I could add in $100, $200 into fun money, the budgeting part of things became funner, because I had that money to pay for whatever I wanted to do that month. Let it be go and buy a new pair of shoes, or hang out with, you know, friends, or you know, I wanted to, you know, buy a bottle of gin, whatever it might be. I had that fun money category that was allocated to anything that's going to give me more utility at the end of the day. So keep that in mind as you're building out your budget.
Yep.
Yeah, I think just being honest with yourself is like the number one thing, and you know, don't try to make the budget into what you like, or don't try to say your budget is what you think it should be. It's got to be like, what are you actually spending, and then, you know, just being honest with yourself and really taking a look at it. And then I know a couple of people touched on earlier, but investing's got to be a part of your goal, right? Whether it's some of the things we went over, stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever it might be, but you need to put that in the budget. You know, the budget is $300 a month or $500 a month or whatever it is, whatever that number is that is going to get to whatever goal that you want to get to per month. I say put that in there, and I say if your goal is 300, put 400 in there or 500, because you want to be conservative so that you know that even if something kind of goes wrong, I mean, you don't want to get in the habit of, you know, if you put 500 in there, you know, doing 300, but you want to know that, hey, if that's your most important goal, which if you want to be financially free, or, you know, you want to retire and that's one of your top goals, then make that your priority in your budget, to where you say, hey, I only need 300 a month, but I'm going to actually section away 500 and I'm going to make that work. I'm going to figure out, I'll figure out a way. But you don't want to make your budget and then go, well, let's see what we got fucking left at the end of the month, and then, you know, maybe we'll invest some of it. It's got to be like, that's actually number one, right? And that doesn't mean, you know, invest in stocks and not pay your mortgage, but you know what I'm saying. You know, it's let's not figure it out at the end of the month. Let's make that our priority and make sure our bills are getting paid. But, you know, let's sacrifice the things that a lot of times there's things that you're paying money for that don't actually even add value to your life. You're just, you know, maybe you haven't got the best deal on something, or maybe you're spending money you didn't know you were. There's old subscriptions, whatever it might be. So those are kind of the tips. I think that, you know, we've kind of got through all the questions. We're pretty good on time. You know, we definitely appreciate all you guys coming in here. You know, it was good for me. I think that even, you know, regardless of whatever level you're at, you know, it's always good to expose yourself to these kind of educational situations. You know, I've even learned, you know, some things, or picked up some things. I'm gonna go talk to my now fiance after this, and I think we need to have a financial meeting. Not that anything's wrong, but that was a really good idea. And I wrote that down as something where, hey, you know what? Like, we haven't really done that and set our goals together in a long time. So that's something that I'm going to take away, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed it. If you guys have anything else, or?
Not in particular.
Nope.
We are going to be doing these guys on probably a monthly or quarterly basis. We haven't really decided yet. We're looking to have various topics. We're going to go over a lot of different areas. We're also going to bring in guests. So every single one after this, we're going to bring in a fourth person, and that's going to be a guest each time. So stay tuned. These aren't going away. This isn't the only one we're doing. So in the future, be around, surround yourself with people, like-minded people trying to better themselves. And we're going to be around as long as you want to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
For your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell you guys friends, if you enjoyed it tonight. You know, we'll be doing more. You know, we'll have to figure it out. Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once a quarter. Obviously, you guys probably all follow us on Instagram. So we'll be putting out all that information through our channel. So tell your friends about it. You know, check out our pages. Try to share the information, because obviously the number one goal for all of us is to, you know, help as many people as possible better their wallet, and better their life and their wealth, and you know, really just make their life better in general. So thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find us on Instagram, at Budget Dog, at Better Wallet, and at defining.wealth. Hit us up anytime. If you guys are here, that means so much to us. You know, I don't want you guys to feel, you know, scared or shy. Hit us up, DM us. We will definitely, if you say, hey, I was in this webinar, I got some questions about this. I know all three of us would be, you know, ecstatic to try to help you out and figure out how to make your lives better. So hit us up. Stay tuned. We'll see you guys soon. And that's all we got. Signing out. See ya.
Over and out.
All right.
Bye.